It's Monday, and welcome back to the Joust About Careers podcast. This is the place to learn about careers from the people who are actually doing the work every day. I'm your host, Brian Brott, and my guest today is Tori Bookwalter, a 2017 Van Buren graduate who is the social media coordinator for the National Hockey League's Florida Panthers. Tori shares how a typical day looks for a social media coordinator, explains why she chose social media over journalism, discusses whether someone entering the social media field needs a college degree, and much more. Whether you are interested in a social media career or are still exploring your options, I hope that what Tori shares today will help all of you make better career decisions and have fulfilling career journeys. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Joust About Careers podcast. And today we have 2017 Van Buren graduate Tori Bookwalter with us. And she's going to be talking about her career as a social media coordinator for the Florida Panthers of the NHL. So, Tori, thank you very much for joining us today. And you were also on episode number 3 of this podcast back in November of 2020. So a lot has changed since then. Thankfully, COVID, for the most part, is done, and we're on with our lives. But I'd love for you to start out by talking a little bit about what you do on a daily basis as a social media coordinator.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me back. I'm excited. So my day-to-day is, honestly, I don't have one. Every day is a little bit different for me, and that's kind of what I was looking forward to when I was going into sports, because, there's always something new happening or something new to cover. But yeah, in season, my day-to-day is pretty much just getting ready for games, preparing videos, graphics. I'm posting all day long on our social media channels. I do all of our photography. I edit all of our videos. So it's a pretty hectic day, and no day is the same. But as you can imagine, I do work really, really long hours. So yesterday we actually had a game, and I'm in the office at 9 a.m. and our game starts at 10 p.m. because we're on the West Coast. So that means I'm in bed at like 2, and I get back up and go to work the next day. So you really have to love being in this career, and I do, which I'm fortunate to. But yeah, no day is the same. But honestly, that's kind of exciting for me. So
Yeah, adds that variety, and that's always a good
definitely,
thing.
definitely.
What would you say you love the most about it? I mean, you described a bunch of different things that you do. What is it that really makes you get up every morning and love going to work?
Yeah, I am a really creative person. I always have been, and that's something that I really valued in my career when I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Um, Social media is obviously the best outlet to me to like be able to express my creativity, and every day, you go into the office and you're trying to think about things like, how do we continue to make our fans want to engage with us? How do we get more fans? How do we um, you know, get more people into the NHL? I work in a really untraditional hockey market. As you can imagine, South Florida is not, the number one place to watch hockey. And I think it's really, really exciting every day going into the office, just trying to, like get people's attention, because not only are we competing with like Miami itself and Fort Lauderdale itself and all the things that come with those big cities, we're also competing with the Dolphins, the Heat, and the Marlins and University of Miami every single day. So I really love the opportunity to be creative. And I'm not saying that all of my ideas work out, because they definitely do not. But I don't know. I like I don't the I'm trying to think. I like the opportunity that is always there, if that makes sense.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
there's always a challenge there. And like you
Yeah.
said, I mean, it's not really a competition, but it's kind of a competition
Yeah.
because you're trying to make sure that the Panthers are sending the best messages and people know about them and so forth. So yeah, I think that's a great thing about a career. We all want that challenge.
Hmm.
You talked about social media channels. How many different channels are there that you are dealing with on a daily or weekly basis?
Yeah, so obviously we have the main big ones, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. And we have all of those for all of our main Florida Panthers channels. But there's a team of two, so it's me and my boss. We're running our foundation, all of those platforms. We're running our retail, all of those platforms. We're running, like we help the players actually with their
Oh,
with
okay.
their social media strategy sometimes. So not only are we doing all those platforms for our main channels, but we're also running everything that comes in the company as well. So there's a lot to be doing every day. And I know sometimes people ask, like, oh, what could you be doing? Social media can't be that hard, but you never realize how big and broad the scope is of everything that we do every day. Like we have to consider everything from PR to hockey ops to legal. There's a lot of things that we can't do and a lot of trends that we can't hop on and a lot of copywritten stuff that we're not allowed to use without getting sued.
Right.
So again, it goes back to that creativity and just trying to work around all the different obstacles for all those different platforms because they all do really need they need different content and you just have to know, this might perform well on these channels or probably not these ones, but let's try and see. And now we know that they do or don't. So
Right.
yeah.
So yeah, what works on LinkedIn probably isn't going to work well on TikTok and vice
No,
versa.
no, not at all. Not at all.
You talked a little bit about, they're on the West Coast last night. And do you go into the office to watch that, or are you sitting on your couch at home?
Mhm.
And how does that work? Do you ever travel with the team?
So we have 82 games this season. A lot of them obviously split down the middle. It's away and home. Mostly for away games, I am at home. I am sitting on my couch covering it. But a lot of the times we have watch parties, we have events going on around the community, and that's I attend those and I cover those while also covering the game because my boss is the one that travels. I have been to a couple preseason games. It was an awesome, awesome experience to be able to travel with the team on the team plane. There's so many nuances that you don't think about because when you're traveling alone, it's like I'll do whatever, whatever. But when you're traveling with a team, there's so many different things you have to think about. And honestly, it was awesome. I also covered our rookie tourney, which is where all of our obviously prospects come and they face three other teams. I traveled um I traveled to Fort Myers this year to actually cover that by myself, and that was my first solo road trip, so that was really exciting. But yeah, I think it's going to be maybe a year or two before I start really traveling, just because, again, as I said, there's so many different things you have to think about when you're traveling that you just don't normally. So it just takes experience, really.
Last year, the Panthers went to the Stanley Cup Finals. Unfortunately, they lost. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like to be covering a team that was on the verge of winning a championship and what that looks like? I see that they're currently, I think when I checked yesterday, they were in second place.
Mhm.
So, they're doing very well again this year. What's that like?
Insane. That's the one word I can use to describe it. It was such a surreal experience, and it was my first actual season covering the team because I started at the tail end of the season before. So that was my first full experience with the team. And honestly, I don't know how much you watch the NHL, but we weren't even supposed to make it to the playoffs. We were like out of the wild card, and then we made it in by somebody else losing. I don't remember what team it was. Maybe the Blue Jackets, maybe. But they lost and that bumped us in. So we didn't even win our way in. You know
Wow.
what I mean? We were the eighth seed, and then we were playing the Boston Bruins, which they had just come off of the best regular season in NHL history. So I'm sitting there thinking, that I want to be positive, but what are you really supposed to think? You're the
Right.
wild card and you're facing the best team in NHL history. And then we win, we win in overtime. And I had to hold back tears, if I'm being honest. That was such a cool moment. And I got to be a part of it. And it's like that was our Stanley Cup. You know what? It doesn't even matter how far we go because that was cool enough. And then we kept advancing and we won the Eastern Conference Final, and nobody expected us to win the Eastern Conference Final. And so we were really just the underdogs the whole time. And obviously we ended up losing, but we were the underdogs the whole time. And I just thought like that was such a cool opportunity for me to really to really experience that and dig into that voice. And so many things come with, going to the playoffs and all the things you're able to cover now and all the things you're able to do and all the eyes on you. And
Right.
that was just such a huge opportunity for me and the team. I I am a little upset because if they would have won, I would have gotten a ring too. And I was telling everybody about that, like, oh yeah, if they win, I get a ring too. And then we ended up not winning. But honestly, that was probably gonna be a huge highlight in my career.
Right.
As I advance and go wherever I go or stay here for the long haul. But I couldn't have asked for a better first season, really, because that was just storybook. And it would have been awesome if we won, but there were so many instances in there that nobody thought was going to happen. And to me, that's kind of what sports is about, like
Right.
the underdog story, the things you don't expect to happen. And it was just so cool to be able to cover that.
That's what makes it all worth watching, because if the favorite always won, no one would ever care. So that's very
Exactly.
cool. That's very
Exactly.
cool. You've had some great experiences. So let's go back to high school. And you were a senior at Van Buren, graduating, headed to Penn State. You were very excited about that. What were your career plans when you were graduating from high school?
Yeah. Obviously, as everybody knows who's ever talked to me, I was really, really excited about going to Penn State. So after that, I really hadn't figured anything out upon graduation. I just knew I was going to figure it out at Penn State. I was not going to figure it out anywhere else. But I got there, and throughout high school, I was always really, really interested in sports. If you go back to my Twitter from 2016, I was tweeting every day about the Browns or the Indians, just stuff like that. So I always knew I wanted to go into sports. I just didn't know what avenue.
Mhm.
Um, so I went to college and I declared for broadcast journalism because I was thinking, how cool would it be to be a sideline reporter and kind of be the next Aaron Andrews and stuff like that, which is a lot of people who, want to go into sports. That's the avenue they take.
Right.
Um, it was around, I'd say, my junior year that I kind of figured out that really wasn't what I wanted to do because journalism is so black and white, and as I said earlier, I'm a very creative person and I just it wasn't fulfilling exactly what I wanted to do. Um, so I got an internship in the athletic department as in like a sports information intern. So I was kind of just updating stats and notes for men's soccer. And then the time came where the men's swim and dive contact quit and they promoted me. And that was such a cool opportunity because that is so hands-on and doing all of their writing, all of their social, all of pretty much everything that you can think of that goes into that team I was doing.
Mhm.
And that is kind of what opened my eyes to doing social media because it was just so much fun. Like I got to be so creative and everything. That went on the social channels was because of me or because I had that idea or because I produced it. And I just thought that was so cool. So after that, I started focusing a lot more on social media and maybe marketing because that's also a very creative avenue. But that's kind of when it hit me, this is me being in sports, but also me getting to utilize the things that I know I want to do in a career. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I got into social media. It was completely by accident, honestly, just because I wanted to experience different things from journalism. So I just got, a random internship in the athletic department and look where it led me.
Right.
So I always tell people, don't say no to an opportunity just because you don't think maybe it's relevant or maybe it's not exactly what you want to do, because you never know what you're going to learn about yourself or things you do or don't want to do from those opportunities. And you can just take so many skills away from everything. You're never going to have an opportunity where you're not going to take something away from it, whether good or bad. So yeah, I think that was like the really pivotal point in my career. But long story short, I went to school for broadcast journalism and ended up doing a completely different thing.
That experience, like you said, is always so huge. And I couldn't agree with you more on that. Now, looking at some of your experiences, you had an internship with Blue Wire Podcasts,
Mhm.
which eventually led to you. It looks like you were working for them in a full-time job at one point. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yep.
You worked for the Orange Bowl committee.
Yes.
If you think about all of those positions, internships, etc., I have to believe that, again, like you said, those experiences led you to where you are today. Were there any relationships that you were able to build that have contributed to where you are today, or maybe other steps that you took along the way?
Yeah, 100%. So when I was working for the Orange Bowl, actually, they were located in Miami Lakes, which is probably 30 minutes away from where the Panthers are. Um, and it was a postgraduate internship. So it was from August to February. It was just 6 months long. And after that, it was up to me to figure out where to go, what to do. Um, I got lucky enough that when I was done with that internship, the Panthers had just posted the social media coordinator position. And I'm going, wow, this is what luck. This is written in the stars. So with my time working at the Orange Bowl, we had done a lot of things with the Panthers just because we're trying to market ourselves. It's a college football playoff year. We have a playoff game. So we're trying to do everything we can in the community to get people interested in the game. So we did a lot of things at the Panthers. And the first time I was ever at the Panthers arena, I was in the mascot, Obie. I was the mascot. And I was walking, I was on the ice doing a game with our mascot, Stanley C. Panther, on the ice, no handler, just me in an orange. So I had met the marketing team that way, just being like, oh, hi, I'm here to do Obie, whatever, whatever.
Right.
So I didn't really accumulate those relationships at the time. They were just kind of people that I knew. But when I went to apply for this job, the people who I worked with at the Orange Bowl who knew those people pretty well vouched for me, and they sent them emails and they told them, hey, she applied for this job. I think she'd be really good for X, Y, and Z reason. And I think that had a big impact, just having somebody to vouch for you that knows those people. And I always tell people, networking externally is great, but I think networking internally is just as important. And what I mean by that is when you're around your coworkers and you're accumulating relationships without even knowing it pretty much everywhere you go. And so like don't just look for the next, I don't know how to say this. Don't just look for the next person to like network with. You're surrounded by a pool of people all the time, and you don't know who they know, and you don't know where they're going to go in their career. So just making a good impression on the people around you, I think really helps broaden your scope as to where you can go, who you can know, what you can do, because now you have people to vouch for you.
Right.
So I think building those relationships at the Orange Bowl really, set me up for a good interview. And I went into my interview knowing that people had at least said my name. And so they were kind of looking at me like, oh, okay, her name was brought up. So let's pay a little closer attention to her. And I ended up getting it. So who knows if that helps, but it couldn't have hurt.
Exactly. Definitely didn't hurt. And that's really cool that you were the orange
Oh
mascot
yeah.
at one point.
Oh
And
yeah, that's on my resume too. Mascot Orange Bowl.
and the idea, you mentioned luck there, but again, I guess I'm not a believer in luck. I think people create opportunities for themselves, and you did that
Mhm.
by getting the experience and putting yourself in that position. So I think that's really, really interesting. When it comes to college and going into social media, is a degree necessary? If there are certain degrees that would be more useful than others to move into the social media arena? Any advice on that?
So I don't actually think that college is really the number one thing you need to be doing for social media. I work with two guys who didn't go to college and, they're at my level and beyond. They're doing just fine with, the experiences that they've had. The biggest thing in social media, honestly, is experience. You need to have something to show for yourself and you need to have proof of, I have these assets and I know how to do this and I've run this platform or I've, XYZ. The biggest thing in social media really just is experience. A lot of the people I went to college with now do the same thing and they were PR majors or marketing majors or broadcast journalism. We all just knew we wanted to go into sports. So I honestly don't think there's one degree that's better than the other one for social media specifically. I think journalism really helped me nail down copywriting and nail down, good headlining, stuff like that. But marketing, those people learn how to, I don't know, market to big groups and how to catch the attention of big groups and PR, what to and what not to say. So I think anywhere, in the communication scope is what you should target, but I don't think there's one avenue that you need to take in order to get there.
That's great advice. And, a high school student could say, hey, I know this sports team at my high school doesn't have much of a social media presence. That person could go start doing that. And like you said, start getting that experience and learning and so forth.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
Experience in social media honestly can come from anywhere and you can create your own opportunities. I in high school I got made fun of a lot for how much I tweeted and how much I posted on Instagram, but that was just what I enjoyed. That's what I enjoyed doing. So I just kept doing it and it turned into a career. So, social media experience doesn't just come from your personal brand or, you can make opportunities for yourself, as you said. Oh, this sports team doesn't have any social media coverage. I can do it. I can learn how to run a camera. I can learn how to, copyright, everything like that. So it goes back really to the experience thing. Like just never say no to an opportunity and really forging your own path is a huge thing to get a one up ahead from other candidates. So
Right. Obviously, you're focused on sports. Do you know, are there any other areas, and again, maybe it's business, maybe it's healthcare, whatever, that are really hotbeds for social media people right now? Or is it pretty much everywhere just because social media is so big?
I mean, I think it's everywhere. I think it's become such a big thing and not even just, the big three, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, but TikTok has really taken off and I imagine, everybody is at least seeing a TikTok, you know what I mean? So I think TikTok really actually made more of an importance for brands to get social media I don't know if you've seen the whole Duolingo thing, but Duolingo pretty much blew up because of TikTok. And so I think that kind of put a jump start into brands really valuing social media a lot more than, oh, we'll just use it to tweet our new things or tweet, whatever. One of the girls I graduated with actually does social media for Liquid IV. So
Hmm.
I think that if you don't want to go into sports, there's plenty of opportunities to be doing it for other other brands or other businesses. I think it has become such a valuable thing for every brand because you never know what kind of opportunities or what kind of eyes are going to be on your content now and how that can really expand your brand. So if you don't want to go into sports, but you want to go into social media, there are so many avenues to do that, especially now.
Good. As you think about living now in South Florida, do you miss snow?
I do actually. I know that seems crazy, but I do. I told you I went to school, Penn State. So it's blizzards all the time there. And at home, obviously it's cold and it's rainy and and then you move down here. And when I first got down here, I'm thinking this is awesome. I'm gonna work on my tan. I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna be tan. No one else is gonna be. I'm gonna look cool. You get to a point where you're thinking, I would love to wear a sweater. I would love to wear a jacket. I would love to not be sweating. So I actually do. I do miss the cold. I I I have a little bit better of an opportunity than everybody else though, because I work in a hockey arena. So I still
True.
have to, it's so funny because in the summertime, it's 95 degrees out here, and I'm walking to work in, in like a sweater and a coat and boots because it's freezing in there all the time. But I do miss the snow. You wouldn't
Okay.
believe it, but I do.
So as we wrap up, is there anything that you know now about careers or life in general that you wish you had known when you were in high school?
In high school, I was very timid to go for the things that I wanted to, and I was very reserved in what I was willing to do and like how to put myself out there. I'm not saying I wasn't like an outgoing person, but when it came to doing things that I'd never done or didn't know how to do, I was really like, I'm just not even gonna try kind of thing. And I think now I'm like, girl, what are you doing? Just do it. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like, put yourself out there, make opportunities for yourself, have experiences that you don't think that you would usually have. Because as I said before, you never know where that's going to go. And I think that, you know, as I've gotten farther in my career, and as I've said to you throughout this interview, every step of the way, I was getting out of my comfort zone and I was doing things that I didn't know how to do. And that led me to where I am today. And I just think, you know, in high school, you're at such a crossroads because, you know, you're going into the real world, but you're going to college and you don't know what you want to do. So you're kind of just not doing anything. Does that make sense? And I
Mhm.
just think, how are you going to learn about yourself? How are you going to learn what you want to do? How are you going to learn what you don't want to do if you don't at least try? And so yeah, that's something that I would tell myself, just like do it. Because who cares if you fail, if you don't do your best at it, at least you've tried. So
Right.
I think that's my biggest piece of advice.
Well, Tori, I really appreciate you sharing all of this. And again, I'm very jealous of you. I think you have a really cool position, and I hope that the Panthers can get all the way to the Stanley Cup this year and win it, which would
Me
be
too.
outstanding. So good luck as you continue on your career journey, and thank you for sharing your experience with us today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for making the Joust About Careers podcast part of your day. I hope you learned valuable information from this career story. And to be sure you don't miss upcoming episodes, please click subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform so you'll know when the next episode is released. Thank you for spending a portion of your day with me. And as always, come back next week to learn even more just about careers.